So what is up, Kitsunekon? I'm here with Mark. I'm gonna assume I get this right in the first try. Hildreth?
Yes. Exactly right.
See, you can't fail when your same name's Mark.
You know, it's a synergy. It's a Mark.
We know
it's a Mark
it's
synergy.
like that same feeling of like we just know you're in sync with another Mark and it just works.
All Marks are in sync with all other Marks.
Yeah, it gets a little confusing, but like eventually you kind of can figure it out.
For sure.
But I appreciate you taking a couple minutes.
We can figure it out. They can't figure it out. They don't know what's going on.
They're non-Marks.
What are these Marks talking
about?
They're
the non-Marks of society, and it's like, how much do you really want to count that into something? Like,
it's like, just get on with the interview.
He knows how I am. But I appreciate you taking a couple minutes.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
How was the kind of first? Have you been to like Green Bay area before?
Never.
In Wisconsin or
first time in Wisconsin.
Okay,
first time in Green Bay.
Brand new to like
first time at the convention.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a first timer on all this, but and actually I haven't done a whole lot of conventions in quite a long time, so I've just I've just been getting my feet wet a little bit over the last year or so.
Oh, very cool.
But Wisconsin has been fantastic, and as a Canadian. Being surrounded by very friendly, wonderful people makes me feel very at home.
It's that Midwest hospitality, you just get used to it.
Nah, it's been great.
All right, so I guess the important question, since you're in Wisconsin, have you had cheese curds yet?
Yeah, it was the first thing I was offered. I literally walked off the airplane. Like, here are your cheese curds.
Here's your complimentary cheese curds. Welcome to Wisconsin.
So I need my baggage. No. You need cheese curds.
Cheese curds. Then we'll talk if you get your bags or not.
Also, a Canadian thing. We do our cheese curds good. We like our poutine.
Oh yeah, the poutine. Yeah.
So I have been served poutine on occasion. Which was like fries and gravy and mozzarella. And I'm like, no. This is not a cheese curd. Yeah, it has to squeak.
It does. It needs to squeak. Yes. That's when know the better the squeak, the more authentic the cheese 100%. Curd. Yes. And we already talked about spotted cow. We'll try to get you one.
It's been a delicious convention so far.
Yeah.
And then we get to do what we love and talk about these cool shows that we got to do all these. In my case, all these years ago.
Right, but some amazing stuff. Because you've done also a lot of, like, obviously we'll touch on Gundam Wing. You voice acted Hero in Gundam Wing, and I know at the time, obviously, it was, Gundam, other than, like, the original, was still kind of, like, I guess, a newer franchise. Hadn't really, like, blown up to the state that it did today.
For sure.
So what I want to kind of ask you is, so kind of after the fact, you guys got done, when was kind of the moment for you where you realized that, like, you had recorded a piece of kind of, like, anime history?
Honestly, none of us really knew, short of like maybe some of the producers, like most of us, like the voice actors, we didn't really know the size of the property that we were like sort of the train that we were stepping onto. It was like probably maybe 10 years later, I went to Tokyo on a little trip with someone and was there for like a weekend.
Okay.
And I'm like walking around Tokyo, and over there it was like Gundam. Over there was like Star Wars over here. Like it was like every other shop window had like a Gundam in it.
Yeah.
Then I was like, okay, this is not just so it was a huge phenomenon and like this awesome show before any of the English dubs happened.
Right.
So when we came along, we had this like incredible privilege of getting to voice the characters of this thing that was like already like a massive hit, and here we are like 25 years later and we're still
it's
still
just
going.
As popular as like the Gundam shows that are like coming out today. I mean, like people will reference Gundam Wing as like, I started with Gundam Wing, like Gundam Wing was like for the OG for me. So like you said, like you're kind of coming into like a established franchise that you were able to see in Tokyo. Did that give you like an added pressure when you were like filming lines? Were you trying to make sure like you hit?
Well, no, because that was all done before, right? I mean, I didn't really realize like what that was going to be when we first did it. What I did know at the time, what I remember thinking was, this is like this. It wasn't like any other like cartoon that any of us had done. It wasn't like wacky zany. Hilariousness, It was kind of dark and it was like epic. It was epic in scope, thematically, like storylines, the characters, and not to put like too fine a point on it, but like I had just come out of like being classically trained like in Shakespeare in theater school at the time, and that's kind of how I looked at it. I was like, this is like a giant opera in space.
Yeah,
and that's how I'm going to approach it. I'm going to I'm going to give it that kind of
like gravitas kind of atmosphere to it. I mean,
and that's what worked, as it turns out, about the original too.
Yeah,
because that's what kept people coming back to. It was like, this is like this massive story.
Oh yeah,
not just like,
it's not just like random
cartoon.
Fights and battles, and then a guy blows up and there's an explosion. Like there's actually like depth to it and like character development and growth and
which I was totally into. I was like, let's just approach this as like any other acting role in that sense, you know, and try to make it real insofar as you can make cartoon spaceships real.
How do you make something on a digital screen pop to life and have that same kind of like impact when you were doing like a lot of like the on-screen roles that you've done,
right?
Which did you have any idea, like, because you've done a lot of different like on-screen roles, you've done stuff like Toradors, I'm butchering the name, but you've done like a lot of different like on-screen roles. Did you was getting into anime like kind of like a goal, or did it kind of like fall into your lap while you were working on...
Honestly, like it came a little bit naturally because I had started working on television when I was only probably 10 years old.
Okay.
And I did some animation when I was pretty young as well, so I'd done a lot of other animated series. Right. And I was lucky that way to get to do like a bunch of different stuff. And then when Gundam came along, it was it just seemed sort of a natural progression. There was this project, and would you like to audition for and then it ends up you get the lead role, and then we did that. It was different than the others because you're like by yourself, right? When you record it, it's not like you're in a room full of actors like it normally would be with like free lay animation where you record the voices first. Now we're recording the voices after the animation, and we did it one at a time. So as you know, there was a lot of episodes and like a lot of lines.
Oh yeah,
and you're just standing there all by yourself, trying to give this. So that was a little bit weird. But as far as I had done, I was in the Tutors. I was in a show called V. I was in a show on ABC called Resurrection. I was in The Looming Tower more recently with Jeff Daniels and Peter Sarsgaard, and I did lots of work on camera and also lots of work in the theater. That was sort of my mind frame as I approached all the projects that I was doing, including Gundam Wing, and then Fatal Fury, and Terry Bogard, and Dragon Ball Z, and then many others. But I always just sort of approached it the same way as all the others. Like, it's not different because it's a cartoon.
Right.
This is still like...
It's some of them are... Obviously, you've also done work with like Voltron, with like King Lotor, and obviously like you can look at the Voltron franchise and the Gundam franchises
also,
in Dragon Ball Z. And
I've done, I've been Angel and Cyclops in the X-Men franchise. I've been in He-Man and G.I. Joe, and... I mean, there's a lot. There's all the Barbie movies.
A good pat on the back.
For sure. Well, since it's on camera. And I have the rest of my resume here.
Let me just camera shot that real quick.
But the point being, no, these are... I always approach these things as like... All the good stories are like an ordinary person in extraordinary circumstances.
Right.
Right? So that's different if it's like Looney Tunes. A little bit. But even if it is, you're still,
there's still like a character and...
you just happen to be a cat chasing after a little Tweety bird.
Right.
And you do it for real as much as you can. And in that case, try to be funny also.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like you said, it's different spins on kind of like different project, but still that same sort of, like you said, that actor feel, that kind of put life into the character, even though it's, instead of like on screen, it's, like you said, recording by yourself, kind of like behind the screens of getting recording done.
For sure.
I know you had mentioned like you didn't really do conventions for a long time, so just getting back to them, what's it been like to kind of like, you kind of step away from that scene and then you come back into it for people coming to you for like autographs or Q&As or like telling you things about like the shows and how much like stuff like that you've done has meant to them? Like what has that been like to kind of step away and then kind of come back into it?
Oh man, it's so great. We did a little Q&A this morning, and one person was like in tears. She was talking to Scott McNeil about that he played a role that that she related to, that she found very similar to her father who had passed away, and what this meant to her to be able to go back and like listen to and watch the show, and have that little piece of her dad with her because of like the work that Scott had done. And like when you hear somebody share like a personal experience like that you couldn't possibly imagine when you're. I mean, we go into a studio and we're just doing our job.
Yeah, like having fun and doing stuff. And
you don't. I mean, you sort of imagine people will take all kinds of things from your work, but when you actually get to be in a room and be face to face with a person who shares with you a story about how much your work meant to them because of some personal situation like that, you're just like, man, like that is so far beyond like anything you ever imagined would come from that day in that studio doing that role. It's very fulfilling and sort of humbling in a way when that happens.
Yeah, no, it's like you said, it's like it kind of helps the roles that you're doing stand that test of time of you make those connections with people and like those interactions, but like because again, like you said, the stuff that you've been a part of literally is anime history at this point. Like the stuff is not going away, which has got to be pretty cool that you can kind of like just pat yourself on the back for essentially the rest of time of just being able to have this stuff to look back at. And
you're not getting rid of me.
Not yet. Now I know we're going to be talking to Scott tomorrow, so if you want to say anything bad about him, you totally
do it now.
Yeah, do it now.
I never do. I never say anything bad about Scott except behind his back.
Exactly. But I was loving the interaction between you guys when you guys were doing the Q&A and when you guys were doing the opening ceremony. Is that kind of what it was like for you two when you were able to kind of meet up for Gundam Wing and record together and stuff?
Well, we didn't get to meet up at all for Gundam Wing to record because it was always separate for that project, but we worked on a lot of other shows together. And like me and Scott have known each other for like, you were saying like the Gundam is pretty OG at this point.
Yeah. And
so are we. And like it was like Brian Drummond and Brad Swale and Kirby Morrow, rest in peace when he was alive, and Alessandro Giuliani and David Kay and like all these people that are like some of my oldest friends.
Yeah.
So when we get to hang out in person once in a while, it's another awesome thing about the getting to come to a convention. And then you go so surprised by getting to hang out with somebody that you've known for like 25 years. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah. Did you know he was going to be here, or like how early?
I didn't know until recently.
Okay.
Yeah, but I knew before, like sort of by.
Well, like you just like walked on the hallway. You're like, Scott.
Yeah, I know that hat.
What? Yeah. Why are you here? So usually we'll kind of wrap up with, do you have any projects coming out in the future that you're allowed to talk about, of course, that like people should be paying attention for, or do you have any like key like website, socials, anything that you want to make sure people can get directed towards at all?
So projects, obviously, no, I'm not allowed. No one's ever allowed anymore. It's a thing. We're never allowed to talk about anything. I owe them like an arm and a leg but yes, I'm sort of between projects at the moment, but I've got a couple of things coming out, a couple animated projects coming up.
Okay.
And some film projects, and I'm actually working on some theater projects that I'm writing and producing.
Okay. Cool.
But in terms of socials, most of it is like /Mark Hildreth. So Instagram /Mark Hildreth. I have a YouTube channel because I'm also a musician and a singer, and I made a couple of records, and I'm working on another one, and that is rock on
metal.
And that is it's not metal, but that's that.
Yeah, You'll rock.
But yeah, it's YouTube /Mark Hildreth, and you can hear my records there, and then a whole bunch of other music that I've recorded over the years.
Can people purchase the albums at all? Okay, so sure. I'm guessing there's like a website link?
Yeah, there's like, I have a website, markhildreth.com, and then it's like iTunes and all those.
Okay. Do you want to like quickly plug the music really quick? Like any tours or anything?
There's no tours coming up at the moment. There is a forthcoming album, but I don't know exactly when that's going to drop yet. But the first two albums, Complex State of Attachment and Signs of Life, are both on iTunes and all those places where you buy your local music store online, and then of course you can listen to it all for free anyway. So you might as well just go to YouTube, right?
Yeah. And then subscribe, of course, like while you're
subscribe.
There. While you're there, you might as well subscribe.
And send checks directly.
Directly, yes. And then any like final message you'd want to send to like fans, congoers, kind of anyone in general that you'd want to pass along?
I mean, now that I'm sort of a little bit more back in the swing of the convention circuit, there'll be a few more coming up later this summer and then towards the end of the year, and those are usually posted on some of those social sites. It'll be all on Instagram and that kind of thing too. But no, it's just been it's such a blast to get to come back, and I feel very lucky to be part of some of these projects that people, so many years later. I can't tell you how many people are like, yo, like Gundam Wing was the anime that got me into anime.
Well, no, as soon as the camera turns, as soon as this camera turns off, I'll nerd out and freak out, and we'll until it's off. But
it's very like I feel we all do feel very fortunate, that we got to be a part of something that's like had legs, for this long, and get to see so many different parts of the country and parts of the world and meet so many different people. It's great, and meeting the fans is always awesome.
Yeah, and I'm glad that Kitsunekon so far has been really kind to you, and you kind of enjoyed the experience and been able to kind of have fun with it. And hopefully, anytime that you're want to come back, we're able to get you in, because it's obviously been great to meet you and come back. And...
Oh no, I'm coming back for the cheese, baby.
Well, and that's fair. That's fair.
I need the cheese.
Cheese.
It's got to be the squeaky cheese. They don't do the squeaky cheese anywhere else in the world.
Not as good. It's
go to Con in New York City. You can't get the squeaky cheese.
You gotta get it.
The cheese has got to squeak.
And then and then a little like spotted cow. Like a little.
For sure, man. For sure.
But I appreciate you taking the time. We'll wrap up now, so you can obviously make sure you get some food and enjoy the rest of the con. But I appreciate you taking the time, and we'll catch you soon. And
my pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.